Hey, I'm excited about this talk that you're about to listen to. It's on dreaming God's dreams. And I believe that God has placed a dream in each of our hearts, and sometimes we need help pulling it out. Sometimes we need help walking it out. And so sit back, enjoy as you listen to what it means to dream God's dreams. I want us to take a look at Genesis 37 and I'm going to read from verses 1 to 12. It says, Jacob lived in the land where his father had stayed, the land of Canaan. This is the account of Jacob's family line. Joseph, a young man of 17, was tending the flocks with his brothers, the son of Bilhah and the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and he brought their father a bad report about them. Now Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons because he had been born to him in his old age, and he had made an ornate robe for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than any of them, they hated him and could not speak a kind word to him. Joseph had a dream, and when he told it to his brothers, they hated him all the more. He said to them, listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field when suddenly my sheaf rose and stood up, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it. His brothers said to him, do you intend to reign over us? Will you actually rule us? And they hated him all the more because of his dream and what he had said. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. Listen, he said, I had another dream, and this time the sun, moon, 11 stars were bowing down to me. When he told his father as well as his brothers, his father rebuked him and said, what is this dream you had? Will your mother and I and your brothers actually come and bow down to the ground before you? And his brothers were jealous of him, but his father kept the matter in mind.
Yeah, so when we look at the life of Joseph in this story, to me, there's three things that kind of stages in this part of dreaming that he had that he went through. So the first stage that we see is that he experienced incredible favor. And so you see Joseph, his father, just lavishes on him. He's, the favorite son. He doesn't really have to do a lot of work. He's got a life where he's in a moment where he's really, really blessed. In that, he comes to this place where God gives him this vision or dream. And so this dream at this point is probably far beyond his maturity or his age or his capacity to even fulfill that dream. And yet God gives him this dream, not just once, but he gives him this dream twice. And when Joseph shares it the first time, the response that he gets from his brothers is nowhere near positive. They are very offended by his dream. But yet Joseph still made the choice to speak out his dream, not just once, but even when he received opposition, he spoke it out a second time. And so in that season of favor, so often what will happen is that God will give you a vision or dream for your future. It might be about your family, it might be about your work, it might be about your school, it might be some kind of hobby that you've always wanted to do, like write or publish a book or different things that really are, desires that are placed in there in your heart from God. And when you first begin to step into vision, often we'll experience that season of favor like Joseph did. And so when you're in that initial stage where you're now putting words to what you want to do, when you're beginning to act on that vision, sometimes you can experience an extreme amount of joy. You can experience kind of momentum that comes. So if any of you have ever experienced when you've kind of been in the moment of, this is what I'm meant to do, you'll know that you have so much fulfillment and so much joy because you realize like, this is exactly what I'm called to do. And so that's one of the first stages when we experience a vision or dream from God, is when we first step out, we need to speak it out, just like Joseph did. And also we begin to experience what it's like to be in that season of favor. But that season of favor doesn't always last. What happened next with Joseph, he entered into a season of frustration. And as he was in that season of frustration, he fell out of favor in his family. His brothers turned on him. If you can imagine the pain that Joseph felt when his brothers, totally rejected him. They were so jealous of him. They had so much hatred towards their brother. They were actually ready to murder him. And yet one of the brothers kind of spared his brother's life and said, no, let's not murder him. Let's sell him into slavery. And on top of that, not only did they sell him into slavery, they faked his death to his father. And so this propelled Joseph really, really far from what he saw in his dream. In his dream, he saw his family bowing down before him. He saw, multiple times this happening, and yet all of that fell apart. And so sometimes when we're in the process of walking in God's vision and God's dream for our life, we have that season of favor, we have that season of excitement, and yet sometimes we fall into the season of frustration. And so as we journey today, and Rob's going to be sharing really a lot more about this from his real depth of experience, but we want to encourage you that every vision that we step into, you're going to have both the season of favor and the season of frustration. And just because there was a season of frustration, it didn't mean that God had given up on the dream for Joseph.
I think when I was looking at the life of Joseph, the one thing that impressed me is he probably didn't know how much his brothers hated him. And so he was still willing to share the dream a second time. And sometimes we don't know what people are thinking around us. Actually, people can be smiling or happy. But the thing that impressed me is that Joseph was willing to share the dream. And I think one is, it says that he was 17 years old. And when you're young, sometimes you're not thinking too much. You just kind of blurt it out. And when you get a little bit older, you kind of realize, oh, not everyone likes hearing these things, right? Or maybe not everyone is supportive. And so we can tend to hold back. And I think that is the struggle sometimes we have as believers, is that we're maybe no longer 17 and we no longer kind of have this open heart just to share, as we maybe have some experience in life. And so we're not open all the time with what is going on in our heart. And we think too much about what other people are going to say, and we think too much about how people are going to receive it. And I think Joseph's a real example of someone that just shared exactly the way that God gave it to him. He didn't doctor it. He didn't change it to fit other people, what they would receive it, or he didn't change the dream at all, or just say, well, I had this dream, and didn't give the details, but he shared it exactly the same way that he received it. And I think that is so important, is that when we get God planting things in our heart, is that we speak it out and we say it the way God received it. And I think with this vision with C365, this was something God started putting in our heart last year. And but it seemed so big. And actually, to be honest, it was just on a piece of paper. And we didn't think too much about it. We kind of wrote it down and then just closed the notebook. And I remember in October saying to Sonia, writing her text message and saying, like, is this something we should be looking at? In October, it was something that God started to birth again and started speaking again, almost like how Joseph had the second dream. It just kept coming back. And but it took a lot of that first time sharing it is actually quite scary, right? Because you can feel sometimes the opposition. You can feel maybe this is going to be quite big, or how are people going to receive it, or you have your own insecurities. And I think just Joseph is an example to us that we need to be bold. And that was a word that came out this week during our creative team meeting, was just for our churches, that we need to be bold. We need to be bold sharing on social media. We need to be bold with what God has put in our heart. And it might be big for some people. It might be, who do you think you are? You only have like one person here and one person there. What do you mean you're going to start a global church? But I think having that boldness to speak out and say, no, this is what God has called us to do, and planted in our heart, and not allowing the opinions of people. Or even Joseph's brothers were very good at, hiding how much they hated him, but they questioned him and said, will this really happen? Right. And, but Joseph just kept those things in his heart until God brought it to fulfillment. And so I want to encourage you that what God has put in your heart, maybe you've never shared it before. We're going to go through that session of sharing it, but I want to really encourage you from God's word, as Joseph as an example, is he didn't allow opposition. He didn't allow people that didn't like him to keep him from sharing the vision. And so whatever God has planted in your heart, I want you not just to write it down, but I want to encourage you to speak it out and boldly speak it out. And really allow, maybe you need to share it in your room by yourself and speak it out, verbally, just by yourself, until you get comfortable. But I want to encourage you to speak out the dream and allow God to bring it to fulfillment. And so we're going to pass it over to Robert Tetley at this point.
Jordan asked and Sonia asked me to share my experiences with visioning and with my own life. And so I felt a little overwhelmed by that, because I'm not normally one to go up front and share things. And so my prayer is that something I say today will help you in whatever situation you are. I was a senior executive in a bank 16 years ago. I ran a division for a Canadian bank with over 5,000 people in it. I was well paid. I had great benefits. I had 7 years to retirement where I could get a good pension. And I had a lot of managers working for me, some senior managers. I had one who I was especially close to who had great plans to retire early. His plan was he bought land in Florida. He visited Florida every year. He loved golf. He had wonderful plans, and he couldn't understand why I didn't have plans like that. And I said, well, sometimes a little jealous of you, because his plan was you're going to work till he's 60 when you qualify for a pension, and he was going to go. He had great plans. Well, later that year, cancer struck him. He died in 6 months, and he never got to live his passion of going to Florida. Now that shocked me a little bit, I guess, but it took me back to the time when I was 19, carefree golfer, teenager, with a great career of hanging around golf courses and going to college. And my father suddenly passed away at age 44. And so mom became the mom and dad of 4 boys. I left college and got a job to help raise my family. And the company that I was there 56, when I was 56, I had been with them now for 40 years. So God had been faithful in giving me a career, a very successful career. But it put a seed in my heart to say, well, my dad never got to retire, and my dear friend who had great plans never got to retire. So I started thinking about retiring. No, I loved my people. I had a great group. We were great performers. We were looked after with favor by the bank. And I thought the one thing that I would miss if I retired was my people. I said, where am I going to get my people? So I prayed about it. I asked the Lord about, should I retire? I really want to, but where will I get my people? So I waited on the Lord, and I was never sure whether it just came to me in a still small voice or just a thought, but it clearly came to me, and the Lord said, no, you retire. I'll give you 5,000 sheep, but I'll give them one at a time. You will have one sheep at a time come before you, and your only job is to decide whether to help them or not. But you're going to have a steady stream of them, and just decide, and over time, I'll give you 5,000. Well, that didn't seem like a little large to me, but I never thought that I had skills and abilities to help other people. I'd been in one organization for all that time. But I retired, and my organization saw fit to give me my pension early. So there I was wondering what I was going to do. Now, I was prepared to sweep floors, vacuum carpets, wash floors, do anything that Lord put in front of me. But the direction he put in front of me turned out quickly to be working with leaders of organizations and individuals who seem to have a need of someone to talk to about their own dream and vision. So over the time, the last 16 years, I've worked with churches, missionary organizations, homes for single mothers with addictions, mergers, franchises, even a construction company of which I knew nothing. And most importantly, it's made me a ton of new friends, which will provide tremendous serving opportunities for that. So I'm well on my way to 5,000 sheep. And I would say I've learned a lot more from the sheep than from me giving them, I think. But through my work with Christian ministries, organizations, individuals, over the 16 years, I've seen a pattern evolve around all their visions and all their dreams and all their hopes. And I thought if I shared the pattern I've seen, it might be helpful. One of the things I do on most things, somebody asks me to look at something, I go back and look at the origination of the word. For instance, when people talk to me about managing, they said, you're a manager. So I looked at the origination of the word manager. The word manager, normally people would say, well, that's to handle successfully. So if you handle something successfully, you're managing. There's an added dictionary definition that says to handle successfully with care, which is much different. It's a caring It's a looking after people. So it's not just doing, it's how you do it. So I thought I'd look up dreams. Now, today we think of dreams coming when we're asleep. I think most of us. I got a dream last night. And we imply in our society that if you're daydreaming, that's kind of time wasting. But in Old England in the 13th century, the only definition of dream was things that come to you while you're awake. It had nothing to do with sleeping. It was an auditory or emotional sensation that came to you when you're awake. And in Old English, the definition of a dream was rejoice, joy, to sing, and to make music. So that's a clue of when you get a dream. And I think that's quite accurate. It should bring rejoicing, and it should make music, and it should resonate with your spirit. The other thing I learned is that the dreams are God-sized. They're not your-sized. They're bigger than you. If we have a big God, the dreams are normally something that you can't do on your own, but you need the faith of God that he can do it. So you measure your dream in the terms of what you believe God can do, not what you can do. And I've learned that from other people. Ephesians 20 says, God is able, through his mighty power at work in us, to accomplish infinitely more than we might ask or think. So God can accomplish infinitely more than we might ask or think. The second thing, Mark 23 says, everything is possible for the person who has faith. So through these dreams, I've learned that they generally reflect God's nature in his heart, as revealed in Jesus. So you'll get a clue about it if it reveals God's nature and heart. You'll get a clue if it rings true with your own spirit. It won't be something totally contrary to your own spirit. It resonates with what God's already be saying to you, and to have this communion with God, it implies an ongoing communion with God through which he speaks and you share with him and the vision comes. It's not a one shot, I got a vision. It's part of a relationship that you have with your Heavenly Father. And so in those discussions, I believe I'm seeing that a lot of that comes. So it's part of a trusting relationship. When you get the dream, it involves trust and faith. It will bring peace and understanding. So you get peace in your spirit that, yes, I have it. It may not give you a piece of how to do it, but it'll give you a piece that you have it. It'll generally align with your gifts, your skills, and abilities. It'll be something that you are capable of entering into. And if you don't have those skills and abilities, I've seen where God brings them to people, rounds them out with skills. But it will require you to take action. You can't get the dream and then sit on a piece of paper and say, I have my dream. It will require you to do something. And I call it leaving your comfort zone. Everybody has a comfort zone where I'm safe here. I know what happens here. I'm comfortable with day-to-day living here. I'm secure here. It will cause you to step outside that in faith. Now, I was sharing with Jordan and Sonia, some of the steps are pretty big. Like Jordan and Sonia went to China, and Kevin and Julia went to China, and you know their story. And Steve and Debbie left Woodstock and came to St. Thomas. Like those are big moves. A number of the people I've met have not moved, but the dreams are always big dreams. They've always had to step out in faith, and they've always had to look at something that is bigger than them. So they don't go into it with great confidence and, yes, I can do this. But through their faith in God, they can. So I have broken down the people I've met and the groups I've met into 3 groups. It may be more, it's not really scientific, but let me try and give you 3 situations, and maybe you're in one of them. The first one is people who are actually living out a dream. So if I talk about 365, they have a dream, they start on the journey, and they're living out the dream. It is a journey, not an event. The dream won't be an event. Hold a birthday party. It's a journey. And you're going on a journey. The one thing about the dream, though, is you know the destination. God will give you what it is he'd like you to do, but he doesn't always give you the route to the destination. I liken it, if you're going to go in Canada, you're going to go to Montreal, you know you should start east. If you're here, don't start west because you go in the wrong direction. But you could get to Montreal in a number of ways. You can fly in an hour. You can take a casualty car trip and go through Ottawa and be there in 2 days. So it's a journey that meanders. Generally, you don't get a jet plane that takes you right there. So all I'm saying is, I understand it's a journey. But these people are powerfully motivated by the dream. It's fresh, it's new, they're focused on it, they're living in faith on it that God can do it through them. So that's group one. They're kind of the enthusiastic, I have it, I'm doing it, I'm going to get done. There's a second group that I found who Lord has put me in touch with that I would call stuck. They had a dream. They went through all the phases of the dream. They were through it with enthusiasm, the joy, but now the dream is kind of a day-to-day routine thing. It's lost its enthusiasm and joy, and it's lost the focus on the purpose or goals or destination or the hope for tomorrow. So it's there, but it's not really active. It still could be hoped for, prayed for. So I put that group in a group of just temporarily stuck. And where to go from there. So there's a group that's in there. And the third group is looking for God's dream. There are people earnestly waiting on God's dream, and they're full of hope and passion, saying, I just waiting for this dream. When I get it, away I go. So 3 groups. And let me just quickly take you through what I've learned about the 3 groups. For those on the journey, I'll use Jordan and Sonia simply because they're right there and they've shared their journey with us. He's given them a dream. I encourage anybody with a dream to visualize it and to verbalize it. Put the dream out in faith to others. We saw what happened to Joseph. He put out the wrong people. So one of the things I've learned is build around you a group of people who will encourage you. Don't hang around or present your dreams to people who are not going to share the same enthusiasm as you. So you need encouragers, but you also need more hands. But when you share it, you can share it, but find people who will support it and encourage you. You take time with that vision, dream. I know Sonia told me they parked theirs for a while. You make a decision about it. You make a decision to move forward about the dream or to park the dream. After you make the decision to go forward, there seems to be a period of delay where you wait for God. You wait for God to bring resources, time, open doors. So there's a delay. It's not a big rush into the dream. Along the way, after you're through those, difficulties come. I haven't met one in the hundreds of people I've met where they haven't come across a time of challenges, a time of testing, a time that requires an increase in commitment and an increase in reliance on God, but these are big challenges. And I would even say that they're challenges that the people probably need help getting over. They can't take them on themselves. I think the journeys through dreams are team events, are friendship events, it's not a go alone event. There's a period after that where I've seen 2 things happen. One is people either slow down, they'll get to a dead end, or they'll quit. They'll leave the dream. The challenge is just too big. I'm tired. I've given my best. And you might reach a point where you want to give up. I've seen that in a number of cases. I've also seen that for people who are able to work through it, that they're able to get to a point where God will deliver either new relationships, an intervention for them, needed resources, or encouragement. And I'll talk a little bit about those who are stuck, because I think there's the dead end where people just carry on, but then there's those who get stuck. So the ones who are stuck are moving forward day to day, but it's lost its enthusiasm. It's lost its focus. It's lost its joy. It's lost its enthusiasm. So they had a dream, but it's kind of there. It's in the background now. What I've encouraged and what we've learned to do is go back to where it had its joy and enthusiasm. So there was a period where it was fresh. Go back to where it was fresh. Don't stay where it's kind of dead-ended. So I'm saying sort of restart the journey or go back to a piece where it was good and restart at a time where it was fresh and full of joy and review the journey. Go back and look over the journey that you've come so far. I think most people who go back and look over the journey are surprised at what God did bring them through and what he taught them and how he was faithful. So if you look backward on your journey, for instance, we have a church in town that started where 23 people went in a room and prayed for a church. 55 years later, that church has 15 acres of land, 700 people at church, has a Christian school in the building. So from their faithfulness brought that ministry. Now, people in that ministry look at it and say, well, we have this big mortgage. Oh my goodness, we're selling the mortgage and the music isn't right and it's too hot, too cold. But if I brought the 23 people who had the vision and I put them there, they'd be down on their knees thanking God and saying, we never believed that 23 could cause 700 a Christian school, 15 acres of land in this magnificent building. So sometimes going back helps you look at just how far you've come. Sometimes just looking at point of time is not an encouragement. You see the faults with the point in time. The thing about it, with the help of others, then I say, ask God to refresh the dream or to amend the dream or to adjust it and confirm the dream. I say to people at that point, be flexible in your dream. There's more than one way to achieve what you want to achieve. There's not just one specific goal, but perhaps through others working with you, you can examine it and adjust it, refresh it, and move forward with it. Sometimes people are focused at a single goal. They've named it and claimed it, but with slight adjustment, they can achieve the same thing, but with slightly different approach. So I'm saying to them, get other people involved, try to go back to when it was fresh and new, be open to adjust it, pray over it, and see if someone else can bring addition or slight amendment to your dream. I'm saying regain the enthusiasm, don't get stuck. If you had a dream, don't lose it. I have a great belief that if God put it in your heart, he wants you to accomplish something for him. And it might not just be exactly the way the dream was seen or how we have it in our mind to accomplish. But I'm just saying, just take time to go and review it. If nothing comes to the review, it's fine. But I've seen that work for a lot of people. The other thing I say is look for others with a singular ministry or dream. I have a lot of organizations that are struggling with theirs. I have met other organizations that are in the same ministry or dream. And I think if only they pool their resources, they both could accomplish what they want to accomplish much more quickly. Now, some of them are quite open to that. Some of them say, yes, if we did that, if we find common goal, we can work together and accomplish both the dreams. I've had organizations in Toronto like Homeless Missions for Young People, one of a certain denomination, one of another denomination, both doing the same work, both needing the same tools and resources, one having a certain set of resources that is superior, one having another set of resources more superior. My counsel to them was come together and they don't want anything to do with each other. So I'm not saying that's an answer. I'm saying my view is be open to that as an answer. Be open that you could accomplish your dream by merging it with somebody else's dream. So that's for those people. Now, for those of you who are looking for a dream, I would say that first thing we've learned is that God's desires are bigger than what you're going to imagine. So if you get a big dream, you say, oh, that can't be from God, it's so big. No, that can be from God because it's so big. He wants you to have a dream that needs him in it, not all you. It's part of an ongoing relationship you have with God. Dreams don't come, in my estimation, for anybody I talk to, they don't come if you don't have a relation with God. You can't just go say, God, pop a dream in here. You have to have an ongoing relationship with him. He knows you intimately, but he can speak through prayers, through scriptures, through a still small voice, a sermon, an impression, a dream, or through other people. I've seen them come in all those ways, but it's all part of a relationship with God, being sensitive to the Holy Spirit and leading the Holy Spirit. There is a time where one needs to isolate oneself and be still. Be still and know that I'm God. A lot of the experiences come when people separate themselves, take a time of prayer, isolation, separation, and listen for the still small voice. So there's conditions that you have with friends when you want to discuss something very seriously is you separate yourself. The two of you go somewhere quiet and talk. That's a situation that we should be having with the Lord, and that's where the Lord, you could have intimate communication around these things. As soon as you get it, and you pray over it, I would say visualize and verbalize it. Share it with other people. Now, I've encouraged you to share with people who are supportive, people that you know have a bent for dreaming big dreams. Don't go to Joseph's brothers. Once you get it, I'm suggesting that you write it down or you draw it out. I've seen people take a large sheet of white paper or brown paper, lay it on their table, draw out the aspects of the dream they see. So they visualize it. Now, they aren't artists. They'll take clippings from magazines, pictures from magazines. They'll do anything that helps them picture the dream. The other thing they do is they either leave that paper out during a week or they bring it out once or twice a week. They put it on the table and they review it and they add to it. They just take a pen or pencil or crayons, whatever you got, and they'll add, and it'll flesh out for them. It'll become clearer. It'll go from a stick person to kind of a robust person. Now, somebody asked me, what do you do with family? Well, you can put the kids in there. Kids can have a section of the dream. They can draw their pieces of their own dream for their own life on the family side. So these dreams aren't necessarily limited to a separate thing for the Lord. They can be your own family. But I would share that that's quite effective, trying to draw it, bring it out twice a week or 3 times a week, or just leave it out if you have space, go over it, look at it, and the Lord will bring new things to mind. Oh, I think this is over here. This came to my mind this week. All I'm saying is don't lose those thoughts about the dream as you go busy week and you lose them. It's just a nice place to keep them. So you share it, you get support for it. I've seen people share their meager drawings and it helps people. There are a lot of people who need the help of seeing it. You can talk to it, but they got to sort of see it somehow. So that kind of helps. It will require people to get out of your comfort zone. So if you want to dream, you're going to have to leave what's comfortable to you. If you do things a certain way, you expect life to be a certain way, you have a certain routine. I'm comfortable here. I'm uncomfortable doing that. You're going to get a little push out of your comfort zone. You're going to get a little push into a new area in your life. And so you're going to leave what seems to be safe and step out in faith of God and take a risk. Now, it may not be going to China or going to, St. Thomas, good place to go because I live near there. But he doesn't require you to. Most people's dreams are done in their area that I've met. They're at home. They're not far away. But I believe God gives you a dream where you're at. If you're young like Jordan and Sonia, ready to go to Korea, God knows you're ready to go to China, he'll say go to China. Because their heart is ready to go overseas. I don't think he gives you one if your heart's not ready. So I think it'll attune to your heart. The dream is not based on what you can do. So if you get a big dream, the dream isn't based on what you can do. The dream is based on your faith of what God can do through you. So if you think I can't do that dream, it's true. God can do the dream through you, but not you alone. By verbalizing and sharing it, he'll bring others to you. It will attract others if you're open to have others. Some people want the dream for themselves. This is mine. I must own it. I must control it. It's mine. And it's going to be done my way. My experience is that's not the way it's done. My experience is those people struggle. It's God's dream. God has a goal he wants achieved. I'm not sure God's particularly caring about, I don't want to speak for God, I'm not particularly sure he's particularly caring about who does it. He's chosen you, but if you bring 10 people or 12 people and you get there and it's done, I'm sure that brings you great joy. The other thing is on your journey is to bless other people. The journey is not just for you to get to your dream. The people you're going to be with, you're going to share faith, you're going to share challenges. They're going to grow through journeying with you. So don't miss the point that the journey has growth for everybody through the journey. In the end, you may say, well, what did I get out of that? Well, look around at all the sheep that came with you, and what did they get out of it? And so the dream is big, and it's like a wave. It's got ripples on it, a ripple effect. It'll align with what you can do. You have skills and abilities. God has given us each different skills and abilities. He'll align with those, and if you don't have it, he'll give you it. So that's kind of the three groups I have. I've got those who are journeying, they're happy, enthusiastic, yeah, but they're going to meet difficulties and they're going to need all our help. No question. There are those who are stuck, and I'm saying go back to when you weren't stuck. Try to recapture the dream, but bring someone alongside you who might help you refocus the dream. And then once you get it, I say, open your mind to God and be quiet before the Lord. Schedule silence and solitude times. Take stock of where you are. With your dream, do some research. Don't just jump into it. Jordan, so you want to do an internet ministry, there's a bunch of research. Ask for advice. Establish some priorities. There will come a point where you need to evaluate the cost, and that's just not financial cost. That's facing your fears, taking a risk, trusting God, leaving your comfort zone. You need to plan for problems. Don't expect the journey is without problems. But you need to remember who gave you the vision, that God gave you the vision. And the last one I got is, a lot of people I meet with are talking about it, and I think they need to stop talking about it and start doing it. Just begin. Dream the big dream. And there was a comment in one of the books I read that says, today's impossibilities are tomorrow's miracles.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us on today's session. I hope it was a blessing to you. Pray that as you take those practical steps to write down and walk out what God has for you, that you will see the fulfillment of God's dreams in your life. God bless you.